Hi, I'm going to a baseball game immediately after I film this, so there's your explanation. So have you guys noticed lately that everyone's doing a lot of talking, but no one's actually saying anything? Maybe that's an oversimplification, but obviously podcasts are a really popular form of media consumption nowadays, and it's because they're relatively easy to produce. At most, you need a microphone, and if you're a celebrity with infinite resources, you can really up the production quality and even add a studio or visual component. It also works as an extension of branding. What's more branded than the product being just your thoughts, right? The podcast market is wildly oversaturated and has been for quite some time, but the problem is that they've kind of replaced the traditional interview format. I talked about this in a video over the summer when Katy Perry went on Alex Cooper's show Call Her Daddy, and this video is sort of a spiritual successor to that. So yes, we are talking about some podcast-related drama that has popped off in the entertainment and social media sphere recently. And since I have already invoked the name of Call Her Daddy and Alex Cooper, we might as well start there because Chappell Roan recently made an appearance on her podcast. So chances are, if you were on social media over the weekend, you saw one or multiple clips from this Chappell Roan Call Her Daddy interview floating around, and there were moments in here that made people really mad, and I want to talk about why.
All of my friends who have kids are in hell. I don't know anyone. I actually don't know anyone who's happy and has children at this age. I have like a 1-year-old, 3-year-old, 4 and under, 5 and under. I literally have not met anyone who's happy, anyone who has light in their eyes, anyone who has slept.
Let's start with the more minor controversies here first. You just watched that clip of Chappell Roan talking about how her friends with kids are unhappy, and whoo, is that doing numbers on mom talk right now, guys? I'm not a parent, so maybe this will never touch a visceral nerve for me in the way that it would if I had a kid, but I don't find this statement to be particularly egregious, assuming that Chappell has a close enough relationship with her friends who are parents to be able to say something like this publicly. But at the same time, I get why it rubs people the wrong way, and I think that ultimately has a lot to do with both her tone and just how she comes off in interviews and the Call Her Daddy format. Alex Cooper is very calculated. In my opinion, she's not the most dynamic interviewer. She does this thing where she sticks very heavily to the cards that she's reading, and then she will overcompensate for the fact that she is very obviously doing that. You know, she'll ask this written out question and try to make it sound as natural as possible, and then will immediately overcompensate for that kind of inorganic interaction by doing some agreeable, overly validating banter with the guest as they're answering the question. And so it makes the conversation come off a lot more uppity and vapid than I think is intended. So what Chappell is saying here sounds a lot worse than it is, and I think the same goes for this clip as well.
Do you ever get moments like that of anonymity where you get to feel like people actually don't know who you are anymore?
I think people are scared of me.
Really?
I think I made a big enough deal about not talking to me that people do not talk to me. I've been with people friends who are artists. When they're with me, they're it's a force field around us. People don't come up to me if I'm with you.
Do you love it that you said it?
I know it really hurts people because they take it really, they feel like it's me disrespecting them, that I owe it to them, and that how dare I call it abuse, or complaining about success. I get that a lot, but I'm not complaining about success. I'm just complaining about creepy behavior. I love admiration. Everyone loves admiration. I just don't want you to interrupt me at when I'm having a fight with my girlfriend. Don't fucking be can I get a photo? When I'm crying, talking to my girlfriend. That's fucking crazy.
This is a clip of Alex Cooper discussing a boundary that Chappell set with her fans last year, asking for them to not approach her in public. I have defended Chappell for this in the past. I don't think her stance has changed much since the last time we talked about it, but if you take Chappell talking about this in a different medium, for example, the TikTok she made when this was all going down.
I don't give a fuck if you think it's selfish of me to say no for a photo or for your time or for a hug. That's not normal. That's weird. It's weird.
And compare it to this clip, the conversation again comes off a little less grounded and a little more out of touch, as opposed to when she's very clearly distressed and pleading directly with her audience to leave her alone. You know what I mean? So those are the two minor controversies from this interview, but we have yet to get to the major controversy that came from this whole moment over the weekend, and it's probably a moment that you have seen clipped out of context on your Twitter feed.
How can these girls tour, write, perform, interview, sleep, eat, and fucking work out. And like, how can they do it all and lead a team and be a boss and pay people and like, and be like fucking so politically educated? It's
exhausting.
And it's also impossible. Also, why the fuck are you looking to me for some political answer? You think I have the fucking answer?
But you're like, listen to my song, bitch. Turn it up.
Like, I'm a pop star. I wish I had the answers. I wish the president was a pop star, but she's not.
So this is the clip that has been traveling, but it's interesting to me that the first part of what she says here, that in my opinion recontextualizes that statement, is always conveniently left out of what's being clipped.
Because I'm gay and I should be more politically correct about that, and I should actually be way more knowledgeable about it. And so I get asked a lot of fucking crazy questions that a lot of my peers would not get asked. And that's because I'm gay. And that's because like I have like my opinions, but that doesn't mean I'm like completely like I don't know everything about every topic I have opinions on. Like I don't know everything about like being gay. Like I don't know everything about being a woman. I don't know everything about fucking fashion or drag or performing. Like I try to know everything I can, and but like when I don't answer a question correctly or like I don't acknowledge one community, it's like, how can I do it all? Like
you can't.
The interesting thing to me right off the bat is that every time I've seen this clip out of context, it's always played at the part that's like, it is so hard to tour and write and sleep and eat and be politically educated. And the part that I have not seen until right now is right before that, when she says that she gets held to a different standard than other people in the music industry and is asked about different things and whatever because she's gay, because she's been like outwardly and expressly political in the past, and then kind of goes into this separate kind of diatribe about how she has all the answers, right? I feel like if you put it, and this is what I assumed, into full context, it makes more sense. I think she just doesn't articulate the best. And I think people are expecting her to be 100% articulate all the time because she's being tokenized as, you know, the socially progressive pop star. I think that's what it is. If she was political in the past and now she doesn't have time, it's obviously trying to keep your status in effect. But I don't think that's what she's saying. She's not saying she's not going to be political anymore. She's just saying that she gets held to a different standard because she's been political in the past. Right? Am I not understand? Sometimes I feel like I understand things differently than other people do. So like I'm actually glad that I'm having this conversation because I don't know. I guess I just interpret things differently. So Chappell begins this part of the conversation by talking about how because she's gay and often gets tokenized as the gay pop star, people expect different things of her than they do from her contemporaries in terms of being outwardly political. Then she talks about how she is not educated on every single issue, and then she talks about how it's impossible to be educated on every single issue and still have to like function as a human being, which to me makes more sense in context than just that one clip that serves as the very end of that thought. This is my issue with the podcast clip economy, because a lot of times people are not reacting to statements in the way that they're meant to be taken. They just consume them independently in these bite-sized chunks, or worse, they read a juicy headline in a Pop Crave tweet and form their opinion based on that selected or edited piece of information. But these podcast companies want that. Alex Cooper wants these clips to travel the internet far and wide because it draws people into the full product in some capacity, even if they just watch a little bit of it. It's a complex feedback loop that is not compatible with giving people the benefit of the doubt, something that nobody wants to do when it comes to Chappell Roan in the first place. And Chappell to me has never been the most articulate and gets hurt by the fact that she often has to over-explain herself or is sometimes deliberately misinterpreted. But I do also understand the other side of it, where it was Chappell herself who incorporated politics as part of her brand since she first started getting really popular, whether it be being outspoken for trans rights and LGBT LGBTQ rights, or refusing to perform at the White House over the Biden administration's foreign policy. People have also not forgiven her for the fact that she did not outright endorse Kamala Harris, and presumably this has just always been because of the Biden-Harris administration's stance on Israel, but she never, like, clearly articulated that, which is how we end up with the "there's bad people on both sides" comment. I do think if you're a pop star and you end up incorporating, like, I don't know, political speech as part of your brand, then you are unfortunately going to be expected to clarify your positions on stuff like this. I really just think it boils down to the fact that she is a leftist who is afraid of saying the wrong thing. And so because she's not specific, people will fill in the gaps with what she's not saying, you know what I mean? So I've said this before, but I think it's important to remember too when talking about this kind of situation, is that celebrities and politics, pop culture and politics, like, those are two different things. They have overlap, but they are distinctly different. And I think a lot of this, like, really kind of, like, feral online rage stems from the fact that, like, this is a very confusing time to be alive. None of us know what's coming next. It's very scary, and we have a lot of rage, and we have nowhere to put it, and we tend to channel it toward things that we do understand rather than things that we don't understand. And so, like, getting really mad at Chappell Roan, and I'm not saying that you can't, like, you know, you can disagree with what Chappell Roan's been saying, but, like, getting really, like, legitimately angry over it, in some cases, I feel like is a symptom of a larger problem where, like, we're just putting energy toward things that we can, like, comprehend and, like, comprehend why we're mad at them. Like, Chappell Roan said something that kind of sucks is way easier to understand than, like, red line go down in the stock market today, you know? Like, be up to date about what celebrities are saying and, you know, be passionate about, like, the things that you care about, you know, even if they are in the entertainment world. That's why I'm here, right? That's what I do. But also, like, learn what a tariff is. I'm just saying, like, you can do both. You can channel your energy toward both if you're not doing that already. I also think, and this is something that I talked about on my stream the other night as well, is, like, if you dislike Chappell Roan, I understand why she comes off unlikable to a lot of people. I feel like we haven't seen anybody like her with this level of mainstream success in a really long time. And, like, I understand why she bothers people. I understand why she rubs people the wrong way. And maybe she doesn't for you. Every single person is, like, gonna be different. But I would rather people be like, I don't like her tone, I don't like the way that she comes off, I don't like how she's always, like, bitter about everything or whatever. Because those are just, like, I don't know, one-off, relatively harmless observations that you can make about a person, as opposed to, like, wow, I never liked this person, and now I feel socially vindicated because a lot of people are shitting on her online right now. Like, it's cool to shit on her online, and now I feel morally righteous for disliking her all along, right? Like, you're turning your dislike of a person into, like, a commodified trend. I don't like that shit. You don't need, like, a morally righteous reason to dislike someone, because I think that tendency, like, warps our view of, like, social politics in general in a way that is really unfair. Sometimes you're just, like, not gonna like a person's vibe, and I respect people more for saying that than, like, making it into a social justice thing, you know what I mean? Or alternatively, just, like, making arguments in bad faith. If I see one more Chappell Roan as a Republican argument, like a secret Republican argument, like, that just, you don't understand anything. You don't understand how anything works if that's the conclusion that you're coming to. Just because it sounds smart and somebody, you know, got 40K likes on Twitter for, like, making that observation, that Chappell Roan, a queer woman, who is from, like, a southern state, is secretly a Republican because she has a Republican senator uncle or whatever. Like, I don't know, maybe reevaluate. I didn't mean southern, I meant Midwest. She's from the Midwest, sorry. I sometimes I talk bad. Anyway, one last thing here is, I feel like this is what I wanted to articulate, but I actually didn't say it when I was, like, recording on camera before. Chappell Roan is not the reason why we are in this mess. Like, you could argue that, like, you know, her attitude, maybe, this is not the opinion that I hold, but it's the opinion that some people hold, toward her, like, you know, how she viewed Kamala Harris in this last election cycle, like, you could make the argument, I guess, that is part of the reason why we are where we are right now, but, like, she's not the reason. There are so many bigger systems at play beyond, like, whatever she says. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about Khloe Kardashian and Remy Bader now, thanks.
Back went out, I was in bed for like a month.
Wow.
Like I was like, if I even like turned a little, I would like scream in pain. I would here and there when I could go to, I don't know, fashion events, or I had friends' weddings and things, and I would literally bring Dr. Scholl's shoes because I could not stand in my heels, and I was wearing like gowns with these shoes because I was in so much pain. My knees were going out. Couldn't leave the hospital. I couldn't swallow water. I was like projectile vomiting. Like I was just like, they don't let you leave if you can't drink water. I was so sick. I was in recovery for hours after, like in the recovery room.
I want to switch gears a little bit here because Alex Cooper is a celebrity who is famous because of her podcast, but now I want to talk about celebrities who just happen to be podcasters and how that's causing a whole host of problems on its own. So the clip you just watched is of an influencer named Remy Bader, who used to be known for plus-sized clothing try-on hauls and more relatable fashion content. In recent months, Remy has lost a lot of weight, and her followers have pointed this out in her comments asking if she's on Ozempic or if she received some kind of weight loss surgery. According to her followers, she has largely ignored these comments or gone as far as to block people for even asking about it. Recently, Remy opened up about the reasons behind her weight loss journey on Khloe Kardashian's podcast of all places, revealing that she did in fact have bariatric surgery. Now, this is sort of an interesting dynamic because it's an influencer who at one point built their whole platform off of authenticity and realistic, try-on hauls, talking to a member of the Kardashian family, one of the most notoriously vapid, out-of-touch, and inauthentic institutions in mainstream entertainment. We'll talk about the actual content of this conversation in a second, but first, the optics of this are clearly very strange. Khloe is not exactly an engaging host or podcaster. She barely looks like she's interested in listening to Remy talk about this topic, but she's like feigning this raw, we're having a deep, vulnerable conversation energy because every podcast has to be a Call Her Daddy clone now, and it's already rough watching Alex Cooper do her own shtick, but it's even worse watching Khloe Kardashian attempt to imitate it, you know what I mean? As for Remy, she's gotten a ton of backlash for this podcast appearance for a lot of reasons. The first being that while generally speaking it's no one's business what you choose to do with your body or your health, Remy built her whole platform off of being a relatable plus-sized influencer and then was not honest about the fact that she underwent a medical procedure to lose weight, with many of her fans feeling lied to. So one day you're doing plus-sized clothing try-ons in your bedroom, and then the next you're talking with Khloe Kardashian about your very personal journey with your new body while she pretends to give a shit. It's all very cold and unfeeling, and the issue is that they're trying to pretend it's this real and deep conversation. It's like a weird bit of meta performance theater. And again, I just hate how this has all replaced the concept of a traditional interview. I've talked about this in videos before. Not that I think Remy Bader would ever, like, maybe in another, life, in another decade, she would do one of those, like, daytime talk show TV tell-alls about her weight loss surgery or whatever. But I hate that there's, like, no middle ground between like a super formalized interview and something that is like, casual, but it's really just like a dressed up kind of like, branded podcast in like a more like chill Call Her Daddy-esque format, you know what I mean? I just feel like celebrities need to get more comfortable with actual journalists interviewing them again. I hate that everything is so branded now. Because it all just gets treated as content instead of like information that a person should know, right? It gets treated as not like a fact that is being like dictated through like means of disseminating information, but rather just like a piece of material that some bozo with a microphone can comment over. And it's up to that person whether or not they want to like include the full context of the situation. Which brings me to my last story of the day. Keke Palmer is apparently going to interview Jonathan Majors. So over the weekend, it was announced that Jonathan Majors, who was found guilty of 1 count of assault and 1 count of harassment against his ex-girlfriend Grace Jabari back in 2023, will be making an appearance on Keke Palmer's podcast, Baby, It's Keke Palmer. The conversation will be released to the public on April 8th, and it's titled No Easy Answers, Accountability and Moving Forward with Jonathan Majors. The The episode description reads, accountability. It's a loaded word, right? We're living in a time where we want real accountability, especially for things men have gotten away with for far too long. At the same time, finding forgiveness feels harder than ever, and we're still figuring out what true accountability even looks like. Today, we're sitting down with Jonathan Majors to talk about what life has looked like after being convicted of harassment and assault. This conversation isn't here to give you all the answers. It's complicated, it's messy, but hopefully it brings us a little closer to understanding the complex emotional landscape of the time we're living through. Now, I adore Keke Palmer, I always have. I think she's super talented, and unlike Khloe Kardashian or Alex Cooper, I actually think she is a really charismatic interviewer and can carry a conversation in that way, but unfortunately, that is not the skill set that you need when interviewing an actor who was found guilty of a violent crime. People don't understand this because they think that all celebrities can do it, but interviewing is a really difficult skill, especially if the dynamic is inherently contentious. There are seasoned journalists that I think could handle this kind of discussion with Jonathan Majors, but that's not what this is. Keke is obviously going to be very friendly to him, otherwise he probably wouldn't do it. And the framing of this discussion as taking accountability is a little weird to me because it places the gravity of what he did in the context of like cancellation and working on yourself and other forms of modernized therapy speak, but this is just too serious of a subject for that framing to begin with, because to me, taking accountability in this specific context means that he's already been forgiven. And I just feel like that's not the right tone to do an interview like this with. And then we know what happens, right? Bits and pieces of this longer interview will make their way through various parts of the online ecosystem, clipped out of context, or perhaps with another commentator talking over it, and then everybody's points get lost in the void in the most annoying game of telephone imaginable. Do I think there's a solution here? No, because podcasts are a lucrative format for everyone involved, and ultimately the celebrities who go on them have more say over how their image is portrayed as opposed to a traditional journalistic interview. It's a win-win for everyone. Except for the people watching at home. Thanks for watching, you guys. If you haven't seen these two videos here that I made, I posted them the last 2 Fridays, and I guess Friday is just like a bad luck day for me, because they're not doing like as well as I would like them to, so if you haven't seen them, go watch them. They're good. Thanks so much. Go Yankees, and I'll see you next time. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Best team in baseball, baby.
Yeah.
Best team in baseball.
This team
Let's
totally
go.
doesn't make me severely mentally ill. Let's go.
Subscribe to Brian's Yankees YouTube channel. Thanks, bye.